It's on. Got a full house here today. How many folks this is their first time here? Oh, quite a few. Welcome. Wonderful. So there is a prayer we say, and it basically will introduce you to the lineage that we hold here in this center. It's a Kaju lineage. And we have a prayer, basically, that describes the masters that came before us, and also describes the way in which we are to meditate. For those who are brand new to the center, some of these words won't make a lot of sense to you. Some of them will. It's all right. And if you choose not to say the prayer, that's fine too. But it's on page 3. And it's called the Mahamudra Lineage Prayer. Mahamudra is the highest form of meditation within our lineage. This is a prayer, basically, that describes the lineage that holds these teachings. So we'll begin. Great Vajradhara, Tilopa, Naropa, and Marpa Milarepa, Lord of Dharma Gampopa, knower of the 3 times, omniscient Karmapa, lineage holders of the 4 great and 8 lesser schools, Drikun, Taklun, Sapa, glorious Drupa, and others, you who have mastered the profound path of Mahamudra, the Dakpo Kaju, unrivaled protectors of sentient beings, I pray to you, Kaju Lamas. Grant your blessing that I may follow your tradition and example. As is taught, detachment is the foot of meditation. Attachment to food and wealth disappears. To the meditator who gives up the ties to this life, grant your blessing that attachment to ownership and honor cease. As is taught, devotion is the head of meditation. The Lama opens the door to the profound oral teachings. To the meditator who always turns to him or her, grant your blessing that uncontrived devotion be born within. As is taught, unwavering attention is the body of meditation. Whatever arises is a fresh nature of thought. To the meditator who rests there in naturalness, grant your blessing that meditation be free from intellectualization. As is taught, the essence of thought is Dharmakaya. They are nothing whatsoever, and yet they arise. To the meditator who reflects upon the unobscured play of the mind, grant your blessing that the inseparability of samsara and nirvana be realized. Through all my births, may I not be separated from the perfect Lama, and so enjoy the glory of the Dharma. May I completely accomplish the qualities of the path and stages, and quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. Looks like it might be standing room only here. So again, welcome to all of you, particularly those who are here for the first time. This is also, for many reasons, a great day because we're also celebrating the work of all the various volunteers that work here, all of them unpaid. So this place would not be here running as it is if it weren't for all the volunteers that are here. So, and I think there's a little luncheon afterwards for them. So again, thank you all for being here. So I started out this morning, my computer froze up, and I thought, it has my talk on it. And I thought, oh my gosh, it unfroze. Thank you, Don, for helping me unfreeze my computer. I don't know what I had talked about if I didn't have my notes. I'd have been in trouble. Things work out, though. Didn't panic. So today what I want to talk about is meditation. And particularly I want to talk about the obstacles we're going to meet when we try to meditate. The procedure itself, the technique itself is very simple, how we meditate. And I'll go through that with you this morning. Very simple instructions. But we wind up having difficulties. We wind up with obstacles. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but the most simple reason is our minds are complicated. And we get complicated and get in all kinds of trouble when we go to do something as simple as meditation. It's the simplest thing you do, and it's also, in some respects, the hardest thing you could do. So let me begin by saying, in terms of where we put meditation within the Buddhist teaching, he said, one of his first teachings was very simple. He said, do no harm. Do as much virtuous activity as you can, and train your mind. And that's the Buddhist teaching. Really simple. No harm, do virtue, train your mind. All the Buddhist teaching, in a way, is within that one little teaching. I don't know about you, but when I try to do virtuous things and avoid doing harm, I sometimes run into trouble. And the Buddha said, in order to do good and in order to avoid doing harm, you have to train your mind. We have these habits from ever of being distracted. I was telling a story this morning. You know, your attention, your eyeballs are very, very valuable to the internet, right? Our attention as an aggregate is worth billions and billions of dollars. My personal attention is worth pennies like yours. But it's all we have is our attention. And so meditation is about where are we putting our attention? And how can we discipline it so that in such a way that we are aware of what we are doing and are therefore able to practice in a more continuous manner virtue. So that's basically the reason we meditate, to train our mind so that we can act virtuously. Now, and we're going to do that a little bit here this morning. Nothing particularly complicated here. If you're sitting in a chair, all you do is just make sure your feet are firmly established on the ground. I'll give you the instructions and then we'll do it. So if you're sitting in a chair, you just make sure your feet are firmly planted on the ground and that you feel firmly established in your seat. Sort of draw up the muscles of your behind and sort of tighten up and then settle yourself. That's whether you're sitting in cross-legged or in a chair. Feel grounded. And this is just how we do it, and there are different traditions. We put our palms down and on our knees. The most important thing is straight back. If you do nothing else in terms of the posture, having a straight back is really important. We tuck our chins in slightly. Our tongue is against our palate. And our gaze is a soft gaze, meaning we're not looking at anything in particular, but it's off the tip of our nose, downward gaze, soft. So that's the posture. Most important thing is try to keep your back nice and straight and relax. A prerequisite of meditation is just to relax. Don't do anything. Just relax. For us in this tradition, it's really important to establish your intention. And your intention is, you're not going to entertain thoughts of the past, present, or future. You're just going to be. So your intention is to meditate. And the second thing is, not only do we establish our intention, we establish our motivation. And we want the very best motivation we possibly can. And that motivation is that by my developing a mind that is clear and calm, I will not only help myself, but all beings. So my motivation, the very best motivation, is to be of benefit to all beings as a result of my meditation. The technique is also simple. You place your awareness on your breath. It's the object of your meditation. Now, it could be your breath, it could be a pebble, it could be a stone, it could be a statue of the Buddha. It doesn't matter, but in this case, we're going to use our breath because it's the most natural thing we have. You know, it's right there for us. And you can count exhalations up to 11 or 21 or whatever, and then return to 1 as each exhalation, if that helps you to remain on that object of meditation. Don't have to count, but if it helps you to further ground you, that's fine. And finally, the thing that we do, the mental technique that we use is that when the mind strays, as it will, the mind does a lot of thinking, right? It thinks. It's one of the functions of the mind is to think. When a thought arises, we don't engage in it. We just see it, recognize it, and let it pass. Someone once said, it's like a thought knocks on the door, it comes in, you open the back door and let it out. You don't sit down with it and have tea. It's like that. So for the next few minutes, let's meditate. Again, recalling what meditation is, which is we're not going to be thinking. It's non-conceptual. We're not trying to think about anything. Remember the posture and the technique. If at some point in this meditation your mind is quiet and calm, just rest in it. Rest in the calm. Thank you. So today I'm going to talk about the obstacles we face when we try to meditate. I don't know about you, but I do sometimes meet with obstacles. And so we have to have a way to negotiate or get through those. How many, if you don't mind, how many of you here would describe yourself as a beginner in meditation? Yeah, me too. Yeah, there is, in a certain sense, we are all beginners, you know. But perhaps the greatest obstacle we face in meditating is to establish it as a habit, something that we do every day. And so we have to deal with that. The way we establish a habit of meditation doesn't vary much from the way we establish any habit. It's through repetition, first of all. But the first obstacle we face in meditating is finding a place to do that. So my recommendation, my advice to everybody is if you're beginning to meditate, find a place in your home that you consider your sacred space. And in that space, you meditate. Sounds reasonable, doesn't it? The second thing is find a time to meditate. It's a pretty vulnerable strategy to say when you get up in the morning, I'm going to meditate sometime today. What happens? You know, that you get up and the rush of events lead you this way and that way, and you get distracted. So it's really important to establish a time, a specific time that you're going to meditate. Otherwise, the day is gone and you haven't meditated. So time and place are important. The question might be, well, why would you want a habit? Well, if you have a habit of meditation, you're less sensitive to the rewards and good circumstances. You know, one day your meditation, you may judge it, and we don't judge our meditation, but say we do judge it. We say, oh, we had a bad meditation. And if we don't have a habit, we're going to say, well, I'm just going to give up. Not going to do it the next day. So that's why we have the habit of meditation, because then we're not subject to our ups and downs, and we have them all the time. And when we have a rough spot, it's not that we're going to stop. The question I'm often asked by folks is, well, how long is it going to take me to have this habit of meditation? I used to say, and I thought the science was good on it, it isn't. I thought it was like within 21 days, if you repeat anything a number of times, 21 times, you're going to have a habit. Well, that's not true. Some people just like ducks to water get into the habit of meditating right away. And there are some of us that it takes 6 months. It all depends on your disposition. So the point would be is just to persevere until that habit is established. One of the other things you can do is that if you haven't had a habit of meditation, become conscious of all the rituals, the habits that you already have. Say for in the morning, I brush my teeth and then I get my coffee. Well, those are two habits already established. Become aware of those and place your meditation in between those two habits. What I do, I like tea in the morning. So on my teapot, it says, after you get me, go into the shrine room. So I have a verbal, and not only verbal, but a visual cue. So that helps too to establish a habit. Put a little sign up saying, before I do brush my teeth or take a shower, put on the shower curtain, I'm going to meditate. It does work. You know, it sounds silly, but it does work. So all these steps that I'm talking about become automatic. I have the time, I have the place, and I know where to put it in the day. That's where habit ends. Because when you are meditating, you want to be fresh. You want to be alive. So habit doesn't play out well within meditation if that's what you're thinking. Now, of course, you're going to have to remember the posture and you're going to have to remember the technique, but at some point, even that becomes second nature to you and you don't have to think about it. And again, what we're trying to develop, and so here's the deal. We are goal-oriented in a sense in meditation. And what we are longing for, desiring, working towards, is a calm, clear mind that is able to rest naturally within itself. Doesn't that sound cool? I mean, that sounds really cool. To have a mind that is able, this mind that is so distracted, sometimes so fearful or so expecting stuff, to be able to simply rest in itself quietly, calmly. That's our goal. Goals are important to have when you're trying to establish a habit. And as I pointed out in the beginning, it's really important when you're establishing a goal to have the proper motivation. And in our case, it is that this practice is not just to benefit me, but by doing so, I'm going to benefit others. This morning I had another class, it's called Nundra class, and we were talking about how by our being calm, we radiate that out in the room, and different outcomes result as a result of our being calm. So we, by our calmness, can change chaos into something much less so. I don't think the person would mind my telling that they had a sick spouse, and very sick, and they took him to the hospital, and everyone was crazy. Everything was crazy. And this person has meditated for a while, and her husband, again, because of her chronic situation, had to go back to the hospital. And she said, as a result of meditation, I was calm. Totally different situation for her, and she was able, therefore, to be helpful to those around her. So it's a good goal, and it's a good motivation, because if I'm calm, I'm going to be able to intervene in a mindful way. So I do think it's important every time we sit, every time we meditate, that we recall our goal and we recall our motivation, because if we do that, it's going to help us to establish a habit, and it's also going to help us in the meditation itself. As I said before, you have the posture, and the most important thing is a straight back. The rest, is important, but not as important as a straight back. Once in a while, in your meditation, you might sort of look and say, is my posture right? Is my technique on? And look at that. You can do that. The other thing, too, is one of the biggest obstacles, at least for me, when I began, was saying, I can't do this. This is too hard. I can't do this. So what do we do in our meditation when all of a sudden this thought comes up, I can't do this? Treat it like any other thought. It's just a thought. Don't analyze it. Don't think about it. Just recognize it as a thought and return to the object of your meditation. Now, if this thought about I can't do things, if that pervades your life, well, then you might want to talk to a trusted friend. You might even want to go for mental health counseling. And that's okay. That's good. Your meditation has told you that. But in the meditation itself, you're not analyzing, you're not trying to figure out why that came up, you just let it go. And it's an obstacle to dwell on that sort of thought. Just treat it like any other. The other thing that really is a problem in meditation is impatience. I want to be, I want that end product right now. I want to become and clear. It's going to take time. We have had a lifetime of distraction, and we continue to have a lifetime of distraction. And that's always going to be there. So it's going to take us some time to pull back from that. As the prayer said, detachment is the foot of meditation. And that comes slowly over time. It's not like all of a sudden I become Milarepa and go live in a cave. Detachment is a slow process. We are not monks. We are not, I don't know of anyone that's monk or a nun in this group. We're not Milarepas who were yogis. We're lay folk, right? So we don't have to give up everything. That's not the point of our practice. What we have to begin doing, however, is not grasping at everything, not grasping at thinking that this or that's going to create happiness for us. As they often say, happiness is an inside job. So in meditation, don't try to rush progress. If you want some sort of guideline to figure out what progress is, it would be the ease with which you return to your object of meditation, to your breath. At first, it's going to be very difficult. Sometimes you might go for 10 minutes on a distraction and then come back. And it may be difficult. So the ease with which you return to your breath is one gauge you can look at in terms of seeing your progress. The other thing to do, and this has been said many times and it's been talked about a lot, is that do short sessions many times. You know, sometimes we have day-long meditations here, and about halfway through the day, you can see people getting pretty, it's hard. And what the advice is do like 5 minutes of meditation, stop, rest. And say you want to extend it another 10 minutes, then go ahead and do that. But rest periodically. Break up any session that you do in meditation in smaller segments. And in that rest, just simply rest. My advice is not to get up and do stuff, but stay on your seat, but rest. And then, so short sessions frequently. The other thing that we have to recognize is, you know, we want this calm, clear mind. And then we see some progress there and we think this is going well. And all of a sudden there are upheavals in our lives and we react really negatively. I don't know if you've done that, but I have. I said, what's this all about? I have been developing this mind that's calm and non-reactive, and here it goes. Don't be upset about upheavals. They will occur. Not to worry. Why? Why do we have these upheavals? Because our reactions are habits that we've developed. And from a Buddhist perspective, it's not just in this life, but in previous lifetimes, we've been reactive. And so we bring that to this situation. So momentarily, I may see that I'm calm and clear, but upheavals will occur. That do not be harsh on yourself, and don't judge that everything you've done before then has been wrecked. It's not. Say you did something really negative that maybe hurt yourself or others. Well, what do you do about that? Acknowledge it. Regret without being shamed. Regret what you did. Apply a remedy. For example, I have really trouble with being patient. And I get angry sometimes. I'm admitting this. I do that. And so that's a signal for me to apply a remedy. And the remedy, of course, is patience, taking a breath. And meditation is great to help you do that because you're creating this, you're not reacting to thought in meditation, and off the cushion, you can start doing the same thing. And, then finally, if I've done something that's been harmful, what I do is say to myself, I'm not going to do this again. I'm not going to do this again. One time I said to my teacher, I said, can I say it for the next hour? I won't do this again. He said, well, that's a good start. Yeah, you can do that. My teacher also said, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said that in terms of our being aggressive, and we see a lot of that these days, he said, no matter how aggressive we have been, there is this spark of goodness within each and every one of us. So even though we have failed at different times, we continue to cultivate this goodness through the practice of meditation. Upheavals are not, again, I repeat myself, they are not a sign of failure. The other thing that's really important and is an obstacle is that you start comparing yourself to other meditators. They're better than me, or, well, spoiler alert here. There's going to be some people better. You don't have to compare yourself. There's going to be some people better, some people about the same, and some people worse. You don't have to compare. That's just the way it's going to be. To get into spiritual competition is terribly harmful to you and with those that you're competing with. So, I'm doing good. My time's good. I think I'm talking faster today than I usually do, so I'm going to get finished on time. So there's really, when we talk about, when we actually meditate, the kinds of obstacles are divided into two areas. Basically, there is dullness and there's agitation. Everything in meditation that is an obstacle can be put in one of those two piles. I'm either agitated, thinking a lot, and you've all had that, I'm sure, in meditation. You sat down and thoughts like waterfalls, just come. That happens. And the other thing that happens frequently, and sometimes during my talks, is people get feeling dull. They want to fall asleep. Those are common experiences of all meditators. So what do we do? The sutras recommend that when you are agitated, lower your gaze, lower your gaze, lower your head. This is when you're agitated. Just lower your head. Breathe more softly. Think that, and one of the visualizations you could do is thinking that your breath was sort of a black smoke, and it goes down into the center of the earth. And as you breathe in, that same darkness comes into you and pervades your body. That sort of slows you down. That's one technique. When you find that you're sort of back to what you might call normal, then drop that. Drop it. You don't keep visualizing that. But when you feel like you've settled a bit, that's what you do. On the other hand, if you're dull, feeling really dull, raise your gaze a bit. Think that there is light above you, and it's easy to do that in this room, isn't it? By the way, that's really cool. Have you seen that? I'm distracting you all, okay? They're putting a new chandelier in, and it's going to be, that's just a mock-up. That's not the real one. It's going to be a little bit lower. But anyway, so you can think of there being a light above you, and that you're breathing in light, and that lights you up, and you're radiating light around you. So that's one way of doing it. Another way to see it is simply when you're really agitated, relax. When you feel dull, tighten up. Mingyur Rinpoche says, and I think it's a good motto for our lives, not too tight, not too loose. So in meditation, it is finding that balance between not too tight and not too loose. You'll notice that in our practice, there are times when there are peaks to our agitation, and there are peaks to our dullness. By being aware of that and applying techniques, those peaks narrow out. They settle. And in that space where this balance between not too tight, not too loose, where that exists, there's where the mind can rest naturally within itself. That's what we're trying to do. Does that make sense? I see some heads nodding, at least like, okay, good. So the other thing I would talk about, and I'll just be real brief about this because I'd like to entertain questions about what you are experiencing in your meditation or thoughts you might have about meditation. But another thought that I have is that if you are a beginner, you need to be a little bit more tight than you will later on. Tight in the sense of being more mindful. And mindful in this case means I recollect the object of my meditation. In other words, I'm becoming familiar with my breath. Because if I'm putting my attention on my breath and being very mindful of that, automatically almost when my mind strays, I'll be alert to that and come back. So initially, if you're a beginner meditator, it's really important that you keep mindfulness uppermost in your mind. Later on, you can relax a little bit. Becomes a little bit more you can be a little bit more at ease. But at first, you need that extra mindfulness. The other thing too is, and this sounds simple, but it's hard to do sometimes, whether you are dull or you are agitated, you have to make a deliberate effort to overcome those obstacles. It's not going to happen if you don't do it with effort. So don't be harsh on yourself. Don't say, oh, there I go again, blah, blah, blah. That's just thoughts. Just recognize it and return to the breath. As meditators, I don't know that this is always holds true, but it seems to be my experience. There are some people that take off immediately. They're like eagles. They fly through meditation. It's so easy for them. I'm not one of those, but there are people like that. When I was in retreat, my two retreat buddies, they caught on just like that. I'm not like my situation, and everybody's different. My situation was up and down, although that's probably been most people's experience. They experience some progress and then seems to go down, and then so it's seesaw. It comes up and down. But at some point, as we say, if we persevere, that's a big deal. You have to keep going. Even in the bad times, you have to keep going. You will make progress, and it will even out. And there are some people that actually go for years and not make progress. There's a few like that. And then all of a sudden, because of their effort and perseverance, they then take off. So in all those cases, what is required is perseverance. Even the person that takes off immediately has to keep working on it, has to persevere. Otherwise, you can fall back. That does happen. One real other quick thing, and this is for the more veteran meditator, if there is such a thing. Sometimes we have these wonderful experiences. I was doing a Zoom a couple of nights ago, and this person talked about how they had an elaborate description of how their mental state was at that time. That can be a downfall. And the reason I say that is it's just an experience. It's like sometimes, if you carried a heavy burden and you let go of it, feels good. It's a wonderful experience. And sometimes in meditation, that sort of experience occurs. But we don't grasp it. We just recognize it, maybe as a sign of progress, maybe not, but it may be a sign of progress. It's a sign, not a destination. We don't stay there. We don't try to replicate it. That's the problem with having great experiences. Oh, now I'm sitting down. Now I've got to have that experience again. Oh, I didn't have it. So the important thing is, whenever we're meditating, we don't have expectations of wonderful experiences, nor do we have fear that we won't have great experiences. We're just meditating. So have no fear, but also don't have any hope. When you're dealing with those, you're dealing with grasping, ego grasping. Well, I got a lot more to talk about, but I'm going to stop. The papers that I have there, all I will say is there are two concepts that are important, mindfulness and alertness. They are sort of self-explanatory. Maybe I'll do another talk sometime in the future about those. You're welcome to take those home. If there's not something you want to take home, just leave them on the seat. Thank you for your kind attention, and I did notice people were paying attention. That's cool. Thank you. Thank you very much. There are two microphones. Anybody have questions? And you could talk about something that maybe inspires you, maybe irritates you, maybe interests you, whatever. So please use the microphones. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, Lama Tom.
Good morning.
So we actually had a really good conversation about meditation during tea time. And we talked about, different ways to meditate. But here's a question I've been thinking about that I think is relevant and something we discussed. What's the difference between having a meditation practice and disassociating? I think some of our friends here, and including myself, have an issue with disassociating. You just blink out of existence and you just come right back and you're like, what the heck happened? And I feel like meditation is different, but yes. How would you define the difference between disassociating and meditating?
So I think the difference is awareness. I think when we're disassociating, we're sort of in a flight of ideas and thoughts and whatnot, and we're not present. So I think meditation is about being present as opposed to sort of wandering off in thought. Does that resonate with you?
A little bit. Disassociation is a more malignant way of chasing thoughts.
It's a what?
It's a more malignant, I don't know how to pronounce it, malign. It's a less good way of chasing thoughts. You're lost in a memory or you're lost in a concept.
Yeah.
For me, I'm stuck with anxiety. Yeah. And anxiety becomes like a yappy little dog chasing you and biting at your ankles. Disassociation traps you with that dog. Yeah. You're just there, and then suddenly the dog is gone. In meditation, it's purposeful. It's a purposeful sort of thing. You're there in the moment, but it's more than just a thought of anxiety chasing you. It's hard to describe because in disassociation, and I think for some that have this experience, you're not in control anymore. You can't turn it off. It happens.
Yeah, so one of the things we can do too is sitting on a cushion is not the only way to practice meditation, particularly if our minds are racing and whatnot. Sometimes the physical activity of walking meditation can be a better thing to do when your mind's racing or in lots of thought. But I think what you're saying is true, and I think it's a difference between being aware and being able to see thoughts as just thoughts and being lost in them. I think you've made a point there.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Good morning.
Hi, Lama Tom. Thank you very much for your offering. In a nutshell, my question is, am I normal? But my experience is that sometimes, like on the anniversary of my father's death, the meditation I had was so profound. And another time, and sometimes when I'm in certain people's presence who are considered to be enlightening, that I have an experience of being able to really go deep. And truly, my question is, am I normal? But I just wonder what's behind, what energy is behind that.
Sure, I think it's normal. I think when I was in the presence of my teacher, I had those kind of profound feelings. And I would describe it as an open-heartedness, a tender eyesing of the heart that you get from being with that person. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's pretty normal. And that's pretty good.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Yes. Good
Hello,
morning.
Good morning. Hello, everybody. I am a beginner meditator. This is my very first time.
Congratulations. Yay.
There's many occasions in my life when I was able to channel, this less reactive and calmness in situations, in conflicts, and I think it has been better in my life in many ways.
Oh yeah.
Lately, I was wondering if you have encountered something similar to this, or you have experienced something like this before, when it felt like, because of this nature of being very flexible, be very forgiving and patient in certain situations, when I felt like I somewhat became less effective.
Less effective?
Yeah.
Because of?
Being very flexible,
Oh.
right? Being very accepting everything, the nature of everything, everyone's making sure that everyone is okay, and instead of pushing too hard, instead of being, trying to achieve an objective, a goal,
Yes.
but being very flexible to everyone, being caring, and therefore being less effective as a person.
Yeah, I don't think there's a contradiction between having a heart that's open to others and being able, when necessary, to set boundaries. I don't think there's necessarily, because, why? Because setting boundaries sometimes is not only good for you, but for the other person. Because if there aren't boundaries to them, they may harm you, and that's bad for them. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess in certain situations, when it's necessary to be more...
to set boundaries, absolutely. And you do it with, and that doesn't mean that in your heart you have to be angry. It just means this needs to be so. If it's not so, they're going to hurt somebody or me or them, and more likely both of us. So, no, I think we have to establish boundaries in our lives. It's a practical approach. We have to have that. But it's not so much what we do, but it's what we're thinking. I mean, am I doing this with kindness? Am I doing this with love? Or am I doing this out of anger or resentment? It's more about our minds than what we do outside, I think.
Yeah, with the intentions of...
Yeah. Does that help?
Yes.
Good. Thank you. So persevere.
Hi, Lama Tom. Thank you
morning.
for your talk today. I have a question in regards to meditation in terms of dealing with, let's say, physical discomfort or pain. For example, that cup of coffee earlier is kind of burning a hole in my stomach, and that's kind of distracting,
What,
right?
come again now? What happened to your stomach?
Just heartburn, right?
Okay,
Just
okay.
like, you know,
Okay, yeah.
It's easy to let go of, you know, thoughts or even emotions sometimes, but, you know, physical discomfort or can sometimes be, you know, a little more difficult. Are there techniques to deal with that?
So let's say it's a minor irritation. You know, well, let me tell you a story. A story is that the first time I ever tried to meditate, I went to a month-long meditation session, which was a big mistake. Because the first day of my practice, oh my gosh, every bone in my body ached. And you ever heard of a teacher by the name of Surya Das? It was one of his. Anyway, I went to his month-long session, and so I raised my hand after the first day, and I said, every bone in my body aches, I don't, blah, 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 and I went on and on. And he said, well, how much have you ever meditated before? I said, this is my first time. Point being is, initially, there's going to be some pain in terms of where you put your body, and so forth. And that pain is something we endure to a degree. However, you don't want to hurt yourself. So you try to sustain yourself in meditation a little bit maybe beyond what you think you can, but then drop it. Maybe if it's keeps you, shift your position or sit in a chair. This is not about hurting yourself. And sometimes pain can be so overwhelming we can't meditate. And that's okay. Be gentle on yourself. And, you know, get up from your meditation cushion. People sometimes have migraines. And that's really, so sometimes for those people, the only thing they can do is say mantras over and over again. I'll tell you another story. One time, an old man trick. I fell off of a ladder, broke my wrist. You want to talk about pain. So I'm going into the operating room, and they have to, well, I won't describe the awful things they have to do to fix broken. But anyway, so I was yelling out, "O Mani Padme Hum," at the top of my voice. My doctor thought I was nuts. He said, "What are you doing that for?" And I said, "It helps me not to think of my pain," and it did. It didn't stop it, but and I was doing something virtuous, which was saying mantras. I just was yelling really loud. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so a certain amount of pain's going to be natural in the beginning, and you endure it, but don't hurt yourself. And when you're really feeling bad, maybe it's not a good time to meditate, and you get up, and if you still want to practice, maybe say mantras, or you know. So, any other questions? One last question. We'll have to do this relatively quickly because we are going downstairs, and I think they're having recognition for, yes.
Well, so at the end, toward the end of the Mahamudra prayer, there was what I would characterize as maybe the vilification of the intellectualization
Yes.
of the meditation. Yes. I may have felt a little bit attacked by that. So my question,
by that?
No, yeah, meaning my question is if I'm finding it easier to enter into meditative state by way of a contemplation or a reflection
Okay.
versus
Okay.
focusing on the breath.
Yeah, so here's the deal. There's a difference between contemplation and meditation. In contemplation, you're actually taking a thought, rolling it over in your mind, and seeing how it applies to you oftentimes. And that's a legitimate practice. Meditation is non-conceptual. So in that respect, we're not analyzing or thinking about thoughts. We're not rolling them over in our mind. So they're two distinct religious practices.
Okay.
Both valid, but both very different. Does that help?
No, it does. I wondered if maybe I'm just doing something different. Sounds like I am. And I'm fulfilled by it, and I'm getting something out of it, but I'm not really getting what you
Yeah.
all are after.
So some of the thoughts you can contemplate are called the four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. You might look that up.
Okay.
They're beautiful thoughts
Yeah.
to contemplate.
Yeah.
And there's a particular way to do that. You can ask either Lama, Kathy, or myself how you do that. But the idea here is contemplating, and you're rolling thoughts over in your mind, and it's a legitimate and valid way to practice. But I'd also say that the non-conceptual shamatha that we're talking about, calm abiding, is also a valid and helpful way to negotiate life.
Well, I'll keep working on that one too. Thank you.
Good. Persevere. So we're 5 minutes over. I apologize. Oh, yes. You have an announcement.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for coming today. As you know, KTC is 100% volunteer run, so we are having a volunteer drive. You can find tables throughout the center. We do have our shrine team up there. If you're interested in possibly helping out with the shrine, you can meet Julaine up there, or our AV team. They are always looking for people to help stream everything. Go ahead and head downstairs if you're interested in the tables. We will be serving lunch later on today. We do have a vegan and gluten-free and, of course, vegetarian options. So hopefully we meet everybody's needs. And we will also be having a volunteer recognition ceremony for our volunteers that go above and beyond. Thank you.
So at the very end, what we do is dedicate the merit of what we have done today. First of all, I really appreciate your sincere attention. Thank you very much for that. But we dedicate the merit of our being here together, discussing Dharma, discussing how to meditate. And by this discussion, and the merit of it, may we come to full Buddhahood, full awakening, not only for ourselves, but for all beings. And by the same practice, the same thing that we've done here, by this merit, may we overcome our ignorance of knowing what reality really is, what things really are. So from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from this ocean of samsara, this ocean of suffering, may we free all beings, may we free all beings, may we free all beings. Thank you so much, and have a great week.